Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our pseudo talks for Ask Me Anything on Ventura. We scheduled this one a little short notice compared to all of our other ones, but we wanted to get a kind of a placeholder out or a webinar out to kind of hang out, ask us questions. We'll go over some Ventura stuff here to this webinar. And you never know, Ventura might even release during this webinar. What happens here right before we start in here in just a couple.
Yeah, it looks like we lost you there, Ponce. It sounds like you're back now. It feels like I hear you. We lost you for a second there.
Oh no, where'd you lose me?
Lost you just when you said the introduction of pseudo talks about Ventura and that sort of stuff, and then lost everything after that.
Okay, sorry about that. We're gonna start in just a couple minutes here. We'll be talking about Ventura. You guys can start asking us questions. We may not answer them just yet, but we just want to give everybody a time to join who may be running late and get all the info necessary. Oh yeah, lost audio. Hopefully my audio stays here for the rest of the session. Sorry about that, guys.
I'll let you know if it goes out immediately.
Cool. All right. We'll just get started 1 minute here at 5 past the hour in case anybody's running late. It gives them a chance to join. Thank you for bearing with us here. Hope everybody's excited for the Ventura release. Okay. 20 seconds here. We're already getting some questions. If you already have questions, feel free to shoot them our way. We'll try to get to all the questions throughout this webinar. Some we may to take offline, share directly due to the release of Ventura. Once macOS Ventura releases, we are a little bit more open to talk about kind of some of the things that have been said during the beta process due to kind of the confidentiality of it. But we're happy to kind of chat as much as we can through any of the other questions as much as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today on the Pseudo Talks webinar series. This is the Ask Me Anything on macOS Ventura. We will have some more regularly scheduled sudo talk sessions. This one's a bit out of schedule just to kind of make sure we got something out there for you all to join for Ventura. My name is Nicholas Ponce. I'm the VP of Ops and Security here at Addigy. You can also reach me directly in macadmin Slack at Ponce or at Addigy Integrations channel under my direct name. Craig, you want to do a brief intro?
Yeah, I'm the Senior Product Manager here, overseeing a lot of the MDM work. You can reach me on the macadmin Slack at Mobile Racing, or you can reach me at the our Addigy Integrations Slack under my name as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Craig and I are both actively in macadmin Slack, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you've never heard of macadmin Slack, just Google it. There's actually a Slack workspace you can join for free. It's pretty much almost all the Mac admins are out there. Great place for knowledge and sharing, and definitely a great group of guys and resources. All right. So we're just going to do a quick overview about macOS Ventura, what it means, what's coming. We're going to have some polls. We'll talk some major changes in Ventura, things you should be aware of if you're not already aware of, potential troublesome applications. We'll get to the Ask Us Anything part and then closing remarks. So again, Ventura, I don't believe at this time has released yet, so we'll keep an eye on it. It may actually release during this webinar. We'll just, keep, I'm sure we'll all just keep pressing reload on our browsers until we see it, or until the person at Apple decides to press the button to go and ship it. Probably a pretty stressful button to press. All right, so this is from our previous session. So we actually did a macOS 13 and iOS 16. Craig led it, a webinar, a pseudo talk specifically on Ventura and iOS 16. So I'm going to plug that here. I'm going to send that in the chat if anybody wants to take a look and bookmark it. It is a great webinar, lots of resources there. Craig speaks to a lot about the software update stuff and challenges that you'll come across. We'll speak more to it today, I'm sure. I'm going to send that out to the chat. Whoops, wrong chat. Let me get the right link here. All right, here is the right link. There is a recording, so feel free to watch it at your own discretion. Obviously, Ventura comes out today. iOS 16 has been out for a couple of weeks, right? Is that right, Craig?
Yeah, it's I believe was in September when it was released.
Yeah, sounds about right. So at least 3 weeks, maybe longer. A lot of Ventura information already in there. This session will be recorded as well, so if you have to leave or want to catch up on it, it will be in the same URL, addigy.com/resources. That's where all these videos are posted. I'm going to just post the main link in the chat here, addigy.com/resources. You'll find all our blogs, our previous webinars, our previous pseudo talks. A lot of great resources out there for you to watch at your own leisure. So just want to plug that. If you want to get more information on DDM or declarative device management, the system settings, which is the design is no longer the same as system preferences, passkeys, platform SSO, rapid security response, all these kind of new functionalities. In Ventura and iOS 16, scan these QR codes. Craig built these. It's really easy to find the information you need. All right. So macOS Ventura only works on a subset of specific hardware, or is recommended for supported on specific subset of hardware. This is the hardware. If you don't want to worry about what that hardware is, or like even checking your fleet yourself, you can copy down this community fact. You can just search for it if you don't want to. If you don't want to copy it down, you can just grab this URL. I'm going to put the URL in the chat as well. That will be able to, you can copy that down from the community, add it to your platform, add it to your policies, and I'll tell you whether those devices support Ventura or not. And then you can make a determination about whether those devices should get Ventura. All right. So we're gonna do a couple fun polls here before things go out, and see if we can launch this poll here. Go ahead and try. Let's see if we can make a guess. It's already past 1 o'clock, but the second bullet point uh, is right on the couple minutes here. Last time I think we did this webinar, it released like right before we started or right at the time we started. You know, everybody's gonna have probably a different time zone you're in, so it might be a little bit different. So if you're trying to figure out the time zones, that's the Eastern time zone. But we have a couple more polls to do, just as a fun little kind of things we have, and then at the end, just a couple questions. So. All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes before we close the poll. About half the audience, a little over half the audience has voted. It's always fun. I know in our Mac Admin Slack channel, #Addigy, I think some of the community members already started guessing times. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll now, and we'll go on to the next one just to kind of. I'm going to share the results here. So most of us actually think it's going to release at 2 p.m. Eastern. Somewhere in the world, it's 1 p.m. Yeah, it should be releasing soon, and we should be seeing that shortly. All right. I think this is a great poll question we have here. Are you guys ready for Ventura? Or maybe you're joining this webinar to get ready for Ventura because you're not yet. Either way, we're going to try and help you guys get ready for Ventura. It's always a challenge when the new operating systems come out. It's kind of like Fight Club. You can't talk about Fight Club unless you're in Fight Club, and then when you're in Fight Club, you can't talk about Fight Club. So the beta process has been quite an interesting one. A lot of feedback from the community. There's actually a private channel, Mac Admin Slack. If you're part of the Apple Seed program, you can join it. So definitely something maybe for next year's beta process. You join the Apple Seed private channel. I think after today, it might be kind of closed down. I see John Sutcliffe, head of product, said that the Mac rumor is saying it's rolling out now. I'm sure their CDN is going to get crushed like usual with everybody trying to download it. So it may take you some time to see it or download it if it is rolling out now. Just something to keep in mind. We're going to go ahead and close this poll here. About 3/4 of the audience go ahead and participated. So let's share the results. So about 20% or so are ready. Props to you guys, because it's not easy getting ready for these things before they're out. It takes a lot of participation in the beta programs to even know what's coming out, since most people aren't allowed to talk about it. And those that aren't ready, or maybe, I think that's kind of a normal thing when these operating systems roll out. Wouldn't you say, Craig? Like it's usually pretty fair to say that most people aren't even sure if they're ready, or if all their tool stack is ready, because it's usually a large lift, if you will.
Yeah, it's usually you're waiting on third-party software vendors most of the time, but also too, Apple can sometimes sneak in some things, even if you've been doing testing in the betas that are last minute, that might mess some things up. So it's a challenge either way.
Agreed. All right. Let's go ahead and on that note, Craig, I think that lines up with I'm going to launch the last poll here for you guys, promise. Well, there might be one at the end, but are there any tools preventing your fleet from upgrading? So what we mean by that, and we'll cover some of them, like, is there a specific tool you can't update to macOS Ventura for, or are you not sure? And if you're not sure, that's okay. We'll talk about some of them that we've heard. Most of the vendors usually make public statements about whether they're going to be 0 days ready or not, or try to be. Obviously, that's a gray area with those vendors, but we'll speak to that specifically. If you guys know any tools that are preventing you from upgrade, feel free to send them either in the chat or the questions, probably in the question section, any that you know for sure aren't ready and will prevent you from upgrading. It might be helpful for the rest of the community because, you know, if they're running that same tool, they'll know pretty quickly if you've already found out the hard way, if you will, that it doesn't support it. So let's give it a couple more seconds here before we move on to that poll. Almost 3/4 of the audience answered. We're going to close it very soon. But again, if you know of any tool that doesn't support Ventura yet, please share in the questions. We'd love to hear what those tools are. And if you have any estimate on what they told you might be the timeline, that'd be great. We'll share some of the information we have already obtained. All right, we're going to close the poll and share the results. About 50% have no idea. About 30% say no, and 20% say yes. I'll just share some of the tools that we've got back as feedback. So if you're using these tools, you may just want to be aware that they may not work on Ventura, or there may be some problems with them on Ventura. I think the first one we got was 4D is not certified until after this release. Not sure about that one. Craig, do you know 4D is?
It's not one I'm familiar with.
Okay. Eric, I'm sure you can clarify what that one is. I'm sure it's Cinema 4D. Oh, there you go, Ross. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure that's a pretty popular tool on animators and stuff. The second one we hear is Sophos. Sophos can't be used with Ventura yet. I see someone else mentioning Sophos. We also know for sure that Malwarebytes doesn't work on Ventura as well. I know they're working towards getting Ventura support and it's just waiting release, but I'm not 100% sure on the timeline on Sophos. I think I don't see a timeline here mentioned, but there's also Adobe. We got a comment saying Adobe is still in beta testing on M1 devices, and their software is not compatible. I know that they do have unique installers. I think that there's an Intel and a Silicon unique one. Looks like Sentinel-1, thanks Ross, is compatible with limited operability. And let me actually expand on Malwarebytes will actually work if you upgrade, but if it's a fresh install in Ventura, it will not. So that might be something also you guys want to take a look at. If it's just fresh install, most of us have been testing on fresh VMs as opposed to upgrading our daily drivers or our actual, work machines or employee machines. So the upgrade path may work, meaning the installer might have problems, but the actual app is compatible. So, and we actually got clarity. 4D is a database program, so anybody out there using 4D. And I see Model asked, does anyone know if Bitdefender or Sentinel-1 works on Ventura? And I think Ross answered that one. A full compatible build is yet to be announced. All right, so if you guys, we're seeing that Sophos works when doing fresh installs, it seems. So keep sending those in. We'll share as much info as we can that we get back from you guys, and we'll talk more to it. So obviously some major changes in macOS Ventura. I think the most obvious one to all your end users will be the system preferences pane. It's no longer the system preferences pane we all once used and know. It has a strong look and feel of iOS devices. I think the search bar will definitely help you guys navigate around that if you're not familiar with it, and lots of changes in there just from a graphical interface perspective. Things that kind of work the way will work a different way. The software updates, features and challenges. Lots of new software updates, functionality, but there are some challenges. And mainly that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, probably the most challenges I've seen with the software updates is just the deferral process. Is that a fair statement? I think everything else has been pretty well received.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are some specific workflows we'll try and cover here that are unique to kind of different operating systems, different patch levels, if you will. So like if you're on macOS 12.2 and lower or macOS 12.3 and higher, you may get different software updates, experiences. We'll talk more about that. There's actually new prompts for peripheral acceptance. If you haven't seen that, you will see it when you connect some sort of USB-C device to the device, USB-C peripheral to the device, the macOS device itself. It may prompt you now to accept that connection, or that peripheral may not work. There's new prompts for login items. This is a pretty end user facing one. Something that probably all of us should be aware of is now, well, I should say before in macOS, when you added something as a launch daemon or launch agent, it would just silently run on the device, and the end user wouldn't really know that much of a difference. But now when something like that is added to the device, it's usually going to prompt, unless you've whitelisted it through MDM or something like that, it will show a little banner in the top right hand corner as a notification saying that something was added to a login item. We'll show those just a bit here. And essentially, they just give you a unique way to see and manage the launch daemons, launch agents on the device. Yeah. And the new PPBC key, I think this is the only key that was added in macOS 13. Craig, you can keep me honest here. And we didn't make up this acronym. I guess Apple did by creating it this name, but SPAB, or however we're going to pronounce it, System Policy App Bundles. It's the only new key in macOS 13, and gives a more granular control about permissions, PPBC permissions, about when an app can touch another app or the existing app itself. So. All right, and we just talked about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but potential troublesome applications you may run into during macOS 13 or macOS Ventura after you deploy it is obviously antivirus, anti-malware tools. I think those are the most critical ones that we don't want to upgrade to until our fleet is, until that's usually a third-party vendor is ready, so our fleet can be ready. VPN tools, because they imply connectivity. If users can't connect, then that's a big problem. And any other critical applications like databases, I think Eric brought up, and other tools like that. If you're not sure, ask us in the questions how to kind of test Ventura. If you're not familiar with it, we're happy to kind of provide guidance in any way we can. And last but not least, installers may not be supported even if the application is. So make sure you test out the installation process and the upgrade process. Those are a little unique in their own workflows. So definitely test out each workflow. Make sure they both work for all of the software you need for your end users. All right. So we will get to the questions here in just a second, but we wanted to cover kind of some of the hairy items, if you will. System updates via MDM. And traditionally and historically, we've all been using the software update binary on macOS, and that's what's been the longstanding mechanism to do this. But in Big Sur, Apple slowly started transitioning all these components to MDM. Part of that caused a lot of issues updating devices with system updates. But Craig and team have been hard at work developing the system updates via MDM. And they allow you to update and upgrade the devices. Craig, I don't want to steal too much thunder here. Do you want to talk more specifically about this or add anything?
Sure. I mean, like we can definitely talk a little bit about this because the command line interface and using software update and being able to go to new OSs and things like that used to have a little bit of admin friction, which was good because it didn't allow you to accidentally upgrade someone or update someone to a new OS. But with using MDM now, it's very, very easy to accidentally update someone to a new OS that you may not be ready to do. So, in MDM, you now need to just make sure that you're aware of all of the different workflows and paths that you can accidentally go down so that you understand how you want to start upgrading your devices in your fleet to the new OS. So you really want to start taking some big care on this and really dive into this if you haven't already. There is a public beta in Addigy for this that you can turn on to look at and kind of go through. So I recommend everyone to kind of read through this. We have a really in-depth KB on how all of this is working within Addigy. So just want to make sure that you guys understand that these new processes are all new to most admins here. And so we want to make sure that you guys have as much information as possible to make the best decisions on how you want to upgrade your fleet as we move to Ventura and newer, because this is going to be the new way moving forward across the board. So being able to just push out a new OS without an end user accepting anything and it just going is very awesome and very cool to see, but could lead to some unintended consequences. So we just want to make sure you're fully aware of all of those pieces.
Thank you, Craig. Let's see. So I guess Ventura looks like it's officially out yet. I don't know what the timestamp was that actually kicked it off. But I will say, as part of updates and upgrades and upgrading to Ventura, what we know today and what we've seen kind of in testing is that if your device is macOS 12.2 or earlier, you should not be affected by kind of any of these changes in terms of like automatic upgrades through system updates. With that said, 12.2 is a very early version of Monterey, and probably not too many people are out there or on it. And in fact, with all the 0 days, probably very few of anybody still on it. In macOS 12.3 or later, there was an issue, let's just say, that caused the OS upgrade to run through system updates on these devices. Whether or not you were trying to defer it or not, it didn't matter. One could call this a bug. macOS 12.3 and later. So I believe it's fixed in 12.6.1, but 12.6.1 hasn't been out yet or wasn't released yet.
According to someone here, we now have 12.6.1 showing up in system preferences as an update available. So that's good news.
Yeah, so that means you're going to have to try and get all your fleet upgraded to 12.6.1 as soon as possible. But from what I heard is that Apple made a change so that even in 12.3 plus, it will be fine. Whether we're going to be testing that and trying to confirm in the upcoming release now to make sure that it is legitimate, but that is kind of what the grapevine was telling us. So with that said, the change is only good for 30 days, so make sure you get 12.6.1 installed. If you don't get 12.6.1 installed, Ventura updates published after 30 days on Macs running 12.3 to 12.6. Even when measured deferred, you might still get upgrade prompts. So keep that in mind. I guess the fact of the matter is probably you should upgrade to the latest patch as best practice anyways. If you're past 30 days but not on 12.6.1, just mitigate using Ventura. Mitigate seeing Ventura by deferring both the major and the minor keys. We can show that in the GUI here. And we got a bunch of questions on all of this. So I guess I'll start with an easy one, Craig, that I think you answered already, but just to reiterate, I think this is probably going to be a common one. If I upgrade to macOS 13 Ventura and don't like it easily, can I downgrade back to macOS?
So yeah,
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, it's a little hard because depending on what's in that upgrade, depending on what firmware or anything that might get upgraded that needs that specific OS version, you're gonna want to make sure there's no way to know. Unfortunately, there's not the greatest of release notes to understand every single small minute fact there that was done. So I have seen before where OSs you can go back. It's not usually a problem. Traditionally, it's not usually a problem, but there is possibilities, and I have seen that in rare instances where you cannot go back due to something along that line. So with macOS, definitely has some like gray area there. iOS is very strict. They stop signing different installers about a week after they release a new update, so it's hard to go back. It just really depends. The one thing I want to see here too, if you have some time, Ponce, to go over, can you talk about blocking OS upgrades and trying, what methods do we have now to do so?
Yeah, let's actually pull up the platform here. Um, yeah, and I know we're all talking about kind of like how to handle Ventura and all these things, but I think Craig, you can keep me honest here. I've been running Ventura. I'm on Ventura now. I'm not on the latest release candidate, but um, for several months now, maybe 4 or 5 months, as my daily driver. So it while it has quite a bit of change, it's not terrible, and if a user upgrades, it may not be the end of the world, but it may break those critical applications you need. So um, just an FYI, we're not trying to scare everybody and prevent everybody from upgrading. In fact, if you're able to, you may want to, or after the first patch that gets released. But yeah, it's not as big of a OS release as we've seen in the past with like Catalina and Big Sur, where they deprecated major technologies.
Yeah, I think mine has been the same. I've been doing the same as you, and I've been running Ventura as my daily driver for quite a bit of time now. So yeah, there really hasn't been anything too crazy. And if you can upgrade, please do. It definitely will make things a lot better in terms of just security patches, things of that nature. But yeah, if there are critical applications blocking you, yeah, definitely don't. But it's not the end of the world if people do. There have been some things that you can kind of get around, which has been good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Craig. And to your point, I guess about upgrading, I have seen for the users that wanted to revert back, Craig, I don't know if you've seen this before, but I've seen people take time machine backups and revert back to their previous OS build. And I've seen it no issue, but then I've seen issues with um, certain certain OSs, and this is one that I don't think anybody's really tested because it just got released today. So just proceed with caution, I guess, is our suggestion there.
Yeah.
All right, Craig, going back to your question, blocking major OS updates. I think this one, if you're interested in it, is probably the most recommended way, Craig. All right, I mean, wouldn't you agree that this is probably the thing that's going to probably have the most impact in the short term, aside from our blocker, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree, and I would say this is the really truly only Apple approved method of this, and it's not a block; it's a defer, and it's really important to understand that this is deferring the ability to see that there is an update.
Yeah, and um, I saw a question Jim asked about why can't I check that? And I had to just I had to include this key. Um, that's just an advent of kind of like our modular MDM payloads, I would say, Craig, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't enable everything in the payloads anymore. We kind of let you guys pick and choose, but some of the keys do require a unique combination for actually work well together. All right.
And traditionally, if it does require or have a dependency on another key, we're going to let you know what key it's dependent on that needs to be enabled.
Yeah, and there is another way to block. I'm going to take this off screen in just a second here. But there's another way to block macOS Ventura. Again, Ventura can come in a few different angles this time. So this question came up like, how do you add it to the block? How do you add it to the policy, the blocker? I'm sure most of us have seen the blocker, but probably not all of us. So let me pull that up on screen right now. And keep an eye out, with that said, for our blocker updates. We update this blocker as we can to kind of find all the different ways of blocking the new OS. Sometimes with the new OS, there's new creative ways to do so. We actually have two different types of blockers now. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that. We actually added one with a no ticket blocker. This was actually feedback based on the community. It just blocks macOS Ventura without creating a ticket or an email, if you will. I think some of us have seen it, some of us haven't seen it, but what it does is sometimes the end user just likes to get a little upgrade happy and starts trying to upgrade over and over and over again, and it will spam the ticket system. So whether you want a ticket or not is really up to you, but most of the time admins do want to know who's trying to upgrade, and maybe just talk to them in advance before they do, if they do get blocked, and kind of make an exception for them in some cases. It's as simple as just adding it to the policy. So if you want to add the BlockOS Mac install Ventura, you just simply press add to policy, check the box. You obviously go to software, public library, and that will take care of that. I see a bunch of other questions already. Does Ventura need user to type in the password, or can the patch policy handle that? And you want to answer that, Greg?
Yeah, so like traditionally what will end up happening is that if you are deploying this via a command line interface and having it go through and work in that manner, it's going to require you to enter in a username or a password for the user there to kind of do that. Right now, from what I can tell from our testing with MDM system updates, is that that will just pass through. It does not need a password to kind of do that sort of thing, because it's been authenticated to do so. But yeah, please test that out in your environment just to make sure everything works the way you want it to work, because naturally different environments can experience different things based off of how devices are set up. So I just want to give that disclaimer there on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna add on to that, Craig. I've seen the same as you. The binary will require a password. MDM updates, our new MDM updates mechanism will not require a password. But I will show kind of if the end user's doing it themselves. At least this was our experience in the beta process, and you can see it now. So when the user does try and do the update, they will actually be prompted for their password. This is completely just doing it manually on their own. I don't believe it's a admin password from all the testing I've done, but I'm almost positive it's just the user's password. I believe they will need a secure token to do the update though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. As a reminder, with the release, Apple's updating their Apple Business Manager terms and conditions. And unfortunately, with every release like this, you have to go back into the business portal and accept the terms and conditions for things to start working again. I don't know if they've kicked that out yet as we've been on this webinar during the call, but just something to keep in mind either during this webinar or after. Go check your Business Manager portal if you have one. Make sure to accept the terms and conditions, and then going back into Addigy and check the policy scan and now make sure it's all working, or else the devices will fail to enroll. It usually happens after every release. It's kind of something Apple does post major OS release. So just Just keep that in mind. You will have to go do that. You will need the account owner in Apple Business Manager. So if you don't see it and you're not an account owner, you may need to ask the actual account owner to accept the terms and conditions in Apple Business Manager.
So here's an interesting question to talk about. I've added a little bit on this, but I want to hear your opinions here. And this is not necessarily just with updating and that sort of thing, but should there be separate policies and have policies be maintained for Intel and then one for Apple Silicon devices? Or should you, like, does it matter if they're mixed together, or, you know, just as a structure within Addigy, how do you handle something along those lines?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the only difference between Intel and Silicon is um, the reduced security mode. Um, I think in those devices specifically, it's not really if it's Intel or Silicon, but if it's Silicon and not Apple Business Manager enrolled, then you may have trouble managing the system updates through MDM without the reduced security mode enabled. And if you're interested in what the reduced security mode is, or what the heck I'm talking about here, for the KB.
And the only other thing I could think of too while you're doing that is, you know, certain specific software updates that don't have universal application installers that may only have, you know, Silicon or Intel only installers.
Yeah, 100%. And that's always tricky because some of them use a universal binary, meaning they work on both Intel and Silicon, no extra work needed. Some of them build an Intel installer, some of them build a separate Silicon installer, and they require their own installers. Some of them, their installers don't work on Silicon and only their application does, which is another problem. It requires Rosetta to run. So it really varies. So I think probably create a ticket and we can help you guide you through what you're thinking about if you're having challenges like that. Here's the caveat I was referring to where you get this warning, and if you've never seen it before, it's probably because you don't have any devices outside of Apple Business Manager. But when you enroll a device manually through MDM, and I see a question there about this, you will get this prompt. And if you go into recovery mode, and if you're not sure what recovery mode is, I can show you guys this really quickly. What this does is it just makes you come into the recovery mode to check a box. And once you check that box, you have the ability to manage MDM updates. I might get a little digitized here. All right. While that runs and we get this set up, there's a couple more questions. Is there a way to install MDM silently? No, that's it. That's just a flat out no at this point.
The only other way to do that, I would say, is with the caveat being is if it's enrolled through Apple Business Manager and you do a silent enrollment based off of things that you've already set up for that. I think that would be what we would consider a silent deployment where nothing is really shown to the end user and they don't have to worry about it other than the remote management screen that they just click next on. But yeah, if they're not going through that method, then correct, Ponce 100%. There's no silent way to install it. Requires any.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. That was the end there.
Yeah, no, Craig's 100% right there. We do have some tooling to kind of help you install it silently, but at some point it does require user interaction. The user will have to enter their credentials, or someone will have to enter their credentials to install MDM at this point, unless you're using Apple Business Manager and you're setting up the device for the first time. To Craig's point. All right, so if you go into recovery mode, let's see if I can get my mouse responding in here. You go in this options pane here, and it's a little different to get in recovery mode on Silicon. You press continue. It takes you to the macOS recovery. And once you're in here, there's a reduce security mode option under utilities, startup security utility, and it'll show you the options and the security policy. So you can just come in here and allow remote management of kernel extensions and automatic software updates. Kernel extensions not that big of a deal. I think all but deprecated at this point from most of the vendors. Some vendors still may be using them, but let me make this bigger for everybody can see it a little easier. And that's kind of the rigmarole we have to do to support software updates on silicone non-ADE devices. I see, actually, Ross answered a question that I think someone else had, where when you're prompted to do an system update in Ventura, they don't seem to need to be admins. I think to someone's question here, but their password isn't accepted. And that is because the password wasn't probably accepted. It's just a guess or assumption here. It's most likely based because that user did not have a secure token or what they call volume ownership. Because of that, you have to find a way to give that user secure token from another user. I'm not sure why they don't have it, but there are probably a couple workflows where they can end up in that state. So if you're not sure why that's the case, if it's a beta operating system, just go ahead and rebuild probably, but reach out to the support team at Addigy. We can try and help you figure out what might have happened and how to kind of give that user secure token.
So I think, let's see here, there are a couple other questions that are kind of going on here in particular. And so I just want to clarify a few things. When we talk about doing system updates via MDM, it does require MDM, does require the device to be supervised, and it works on macOS 12 and up. So it does not work on your devices that like macOS 11 with like Big Sur and lower. So, you know, there are some catch-up processes that if you have an older fleet, that you're going to have to work on doing. So those are some things that you really want to, you know, make sure that you're looking into and understanding. So it does require MDM. So the command line interface still serves purposes for certain workflows for older fleets that you guys need to kind of get to. But moving forward on Monterey, if you're there on Monterey, you definitely want to be using system updates. So I just want to clear, I know there were some like questions that kind of hit in the, a bunch of different questions in that scheme of things there to kind of understand a little bit of the differences between the binary and doing system updates now via MDM.
Here's another good question, Craig, and I'm not really sure if there's like, let's see. So if a Ventura device is added to my fleet before officially ready, do the same, waiting on vendor updates. How do you recommend handling that other than erasing the device and installing Monterey?
So if it requires, if it's critical business applications that do not work, just straight up don't work, yes, you're going to have to get them back on Monterey just to do business work. If it has limited functionality, but it'll still allow them to do their job, but there's some finicky things on that, they could probably potentially work around that. Won't be the greatest user experience in the world, but you know, it may not require you to go through all of that work to do so. So it's really hit or miss, but the only hard stop is if it really blocks critical business functionality. So having the blocker in place, like the Addigy blocker, you know, in case they do see it, they go to the Apple Store or the App Store, they download macOS Ventura and want to run the .app, will block that for you. You know, having the restrictions payload up to defer visibility of that so they don't see that in software update, that would be super great to have so that they don't go and see that there. So all of these in combinations are the things you really want to have in place in your environment so that you're covering off as many avenues that they may want to travel. Sure, if someone is really tech savvy, they can get around all of that and then some, but you know, you really just want to make sure you have it for a good 80 to 90% of your fleet.
looks like someone actually tried the new restrictions payload with 12.6.1 and it fixed the update disappears and Addigy as needed. That's good to hear.
Well, what
I
we would
see
say
Mike.
here, so what I was saying here in particular is that the restriction profile, what it does is it hides it from the end user seeing it, but it doesn't delete it from MDM knowing that it's an update that's available for the device. It just deletes it from the end users being able to see it. So what you're looking at is if you're in the system updates via MDM public beta in Addigy, like it should still show, because what we show in the product is what is queued as in like in the collection of available updates for the device. So that's something that we should probably take a look at if you're looking there. Just that'll take a longer session to kind of talk about, and we can kind of look at those pieces in particular.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. I see another question here. Will this work in Ventura? Actually, as of Monterey, and we should probably update this KV article now. As of Monterey, Apple built this feature natively. So I didn't see too much change around it, just change around system preferences pane itself. So it should still be possible both through MDM, meaning through Addigy. You can easily rebuild the device in Addigy by going to wipe device and clicking the EACS button or the erase all contents and settings button, and it'll automatically rebuild that machine on whatever operating system is currently on. It wouldn't necessarily upgrade to the latest operating system during the recent rebuilds, from my experience. There's also, if you want to keep an eye, if you're not sure or want to monitor kind of who's doing what on those devices out there in your fleet, you can actually go to the catalog. There should be a monitoring item in your catalog for macOS version change. You can apply that to your policies. That will notify you that devices are updating. Couple of the customers like to send me and Craig, mainly I send them to Craig about their updates being applied with the new system update process. Just they wake up and see all the devices updating. Not just to Ventura, but to the latest patch levels as well. So if you want to keep an eye on devices that are updating and where, apply that monitor. We can show you where that is.
Do you have the system updates beta enabled in that org?
I'm not sure about that one, but I can pull it up in another one. 1 second.
Okay. If you do, if you could just go to one device in particular, it doesn't matter what it is, and we go live for that, that would be great. So there's a question about where can I find updates available for specific macOS devices? And previously in using the command line, so if you're using the Addigy old method that we have still available in the product, when you go to the policy and then you go to updates and then you go to macOS updates, you're gonna see all of the updates that need to be applied across your organization. Inside now with MDM updates here, you can go and click on. Can you click on 12.6 for me in the top there on their OS? So with system updates via MDM, you're going to have a new tab called Available Updates on the right. And that Available Updates tab will show you what's available for this device. So you can see already down and below on updates, it has macOS Ventura. And it also tells you that you now have the latest Monterey update as well as Ventura available. So this is what should show for you. So you could see this no matter what's going on with the device. Cool, thank you, Hans.
My pleasure. Thank you for showing us that, Craig. This is cool.
And Jim, if you can, as part of your conversation on this, if you could send an email with all of those steps to product@addigy.com, I'd love to go over those when I have some time here to kind of work through that process. That'd be great. Thank you. Jim, sorry about that. So I cut out. It was a product at addigy.com. So right now, when we're doing
Okay.
updates through this in particular, Jack, what you get notified is you get notified in the top right corner in a macOS notification that says it's going to restart the machine. So if there is a device that requires a restart for an update, which these traditionally do, it's going to count down from 60 seconds and then restart the machine. There are scheduling options that you can do within here to make sure that you're doing it instead of a maintenance window. But if you just do it normally without any schedule, it does it nightly at 2 a.m. UTC, and we'll run those for you for the devices in the policy that it's set. So, Pon, sorry about that. You're good to go here. I think that was the finality of the questions I had here.
Yeah, and if you want, Craig, I can pull up on screen what you're specifically talking to here. So, this is what you were talking to, right?
Yes, this is exactly what I was talking about.
This is recorded, so yes, no worries. The recording will be published at addigy.com/resources, or you can just wait for the regular link that gets sent out as a follow-up. Ross asked a great question here, always with the challenging ones. Do scheduled OS upgrades like this work through power nap or sleep?
So the answer is yes, but untested. So some testing that we need to go through and some things to do that in particular, but power nap, from what I understand, still will reach out through and connect to MDM to get appropriate things when it can. So don't quote me on this for, end all be all here. I know it's recorded and you could come back and read this and see this, but yes, but untested based off of what it should do in theory.
And I will add to that, Ross, if you want, you can always check the logs if you're having issues with it. What we've seen historically is that when we try and do MDM updates and it's in a specific form of sleep called dark wake, it may reject it. So if you comb the logs, it will say update deferred because machine is in dark wake mode, I believe is the exact verbiage they will use in the Apple logs. And I was trying to see if I could grab a screenshot of that prompt you were talking about, Craig, but I can't seem to find it in my notes at this time.
Yeah, I keep missing it when I'm doing my testing to actually take a screenshot of it. Yep.
All right. So we're go ahead.
Go ahead. We're just gonna say Ventura is live. 12.6.1 is live, and things are rolling. So I wish everyone the best of luck in your environments as you kind of navigate these waters, because it's always a tricky time. So this is awesome. Thank you guys for coming in and asking a bunch of questions.